George?
My biggest thing is the reason I thought of that was the fact that I've talked about this for a long time, for a long time, when past redevelopment authorities. And there's the reason for that is when you see the turmoil that goes about within government now, that on the political end of things could stop a potential business from coming into town because it isn't liked. I agree with what she says, you know, about confidence and those kind of things, and I think the manager should still move forward with his ideas that he has to market and to sell these pieces off now, but in the also look to the possibility of forming this type of corporation within the town. So future, as the future comes about, I mean, you know, maybe these lots will sell right off the bat, which I'm hoping. I'm optimistic, I'm not a pessimistic. And I see the future up there as potentially moving forward and becoming something in the near future, working with Charlton maybe in their end of their thing. So as this thing develops, I think it would be worthwhile to look at. And as far as the covenants, I mean, I would like to see, you know, the covenants making a certain percentage has to be green. You want to offer them a TIF, this is what you have to do, those kind of things you know what, I don't want to stop business from coming down here, so you know what, if it's a Walmart today and it's a bottling plant tomorrow, I would not want to stop the business because it's going to look like factory versus a glass front building. I don't want to stop that from coming in. I don't think we can afford to stop that type. We might not like what the building looks like, but if it's a new building and it's nice, you know, fine. If it doesn't have the glassy front, so be it. But if you want the glassy front, you give them an offer. Hey, so much TIF, you know, TIF results. Make it green. You know, I mean, today we're trying to be environmentally better for our world, and you want to get a TIF, okay, you've got to do so much percentage.
That's a good idea.
You know, those kind of things. And if they don't want to, let's not stop them, but they don't get the benefit that they could potentially have.
I think Pam was next, and then Gus, and then Sam.
Thank you. There is, what Chris was talking about as far as making the RFP as strict as you want it to. There is some type of protection for the bidder also, as far as politics of it, because if you are, in this case, the highest responsive and responsible bidder, you meet all the criteria. There is some protection there for you. If the council, in its political wisdom, decides we don't like you, no, and they have met all the requirements of that RFP, they have the right to file bid protest.
Did that work with the access road?
Well, did they file a bid protest? They could have, probably.
It's apples and
I said that
oranges.
from day one.
The successful bidder was Royce, and Royce is doing the work.
They agreed to extend their bid.
They agreed to, but I think they would have had,
You know what I'm saying? They just,
but I think if they wanted to push it, I think they could have.
Just what?
Hold on a second, I think Gus was,
Oh, I was wondering, we're talking about trying to do things, there's a fair amount of talk about doing this as an green business park. How much authority does the town have, and not only the town as a government, but the town as the citizens have to put into the requirements of what we want to see in this kind of a park? Because there are certain businesses that if you design the building green, that's one thing, but the business itself is a particular, for what their behavior over the course of time is a particularly green. So maybe we don't want a business like that, whereas we much prefer to have a smaller business that does have some green credibility behind it, so to speak. And I was wondering how would we go about deciding as a community what should be there and what shouldn't be there?
well, I think,
Why do you look right at me?
Chris, you're like a father figure, we all look up to you, asking for guidance.
It's a great hair.
But I personally think if we want to decide what the community wants to do, they need to come to meetings like this, they need to come to council meetings and let their opinion be known. I mean, you can't read minds. And, need input.
I think one of the comments I wanted to make, and you had said earlier, Rich, and it makes me nervous, that, you know, you want to get the highest and best and the most value you can for the property. Under that scenario, really the best way to do it would be to put very little restrictions on the use and just let them comply with zoning. So if the goal of the community is to get maximum amount of money, which is definitely an admirable goal, then that's really the avenue to go. Take off any hindrances at all. When we talk about highest and best use for a green application, just as to Gus's example, then if we say we want a green building, we want this and we want that, then we would get the highest and best and most lucrative for whatever criteria we put on there. And I think that's kind of important to remember, because there is going to be an element of marketability. What are we going to be able to market? What's the anticipated money that we have? As I'm finding out, we're trying to market 5 buildings. We have an appraiser now, or we're going to be recommending an appraiser to be picked for that. They're going to ask those questions. You know, what do we want to see? And do we want a lot of stipulations, or do we want a little bit? And that's going to drive the value and how much the town could anticipate seeing as part of the revenue stream. So I think, and that really is a policy question, is do we want to have a green environmental park and sell it to a green industry? Or do we want to open it up to fair competition? And whatever happens, happens. But that's a conscious decision that the town has to
You know,
make.
I tried to talk to Tom Davis today, but I wasn't able to get in touch with him, because I wanted him to remind me of something he told us about the types of jobs they expected in their industrial park to provide to the town. And I sort of remember him saying that they wanted, you know, high-paying jobs that paid benefits. They didn't. I think he specifically said they don't want minimum wage jobs in an industrial park. And I think, you know, from my point of view, I think that's what we need to maximize. We need to maximize the number of jobs, not only the number of jobs, but we have to make sure that somebody in Southbridge that accepts a job at one of these plants is capable of paying higher property taxes, for instance, because it was amazing to me to find out the tax revenue that industrial park generated. It wasn't very much. It was what, $1 million?
One town it was over $1 million, the other was $500,000.
So, you know, we're not going to get a lot of, you know, tax revenue from the industrial park. What's going to save us is the jobs. And if all we get are minimum wage jobs, that industrial park isn't going to do this town a hell of a lot of good.
I think Mr. Rich, and this is, the way it's zoned right now, and the road that's going up there, has any subdivision actually been planned for the land? Like, is it just an open 45 acres, and if a Walmart distribution center comes in, they could just buy the whole thing, or has it been plotted?
That's what we're going to start to talk about. Approval not required is you would do a subdivision. If we wanted to subdivide it, then we would subdivide it and put in a road and another road to kind of connect into the subdivision. Approval not required means that you could sell them as individual lots, and that would streamline the zoning part considerably. And then if we wanted to put, you know, restrictions in, we would do it as part of the RFP process. And I think, you know, Rich, to be honest, probably the way to do this would be, you know, I'll take a stab at trying to put together some kind of RFP. I like the idea of green. I like the idea of trying to utilize the anchor tenant, which is really Casella, that's up there, and try to craft something on that and just kind of give food for thought for, you know, folks to kind of then hash out. But I think, you know, to the point that was made earlier, that I think the council, once they approve that RFP and is on board with it, and when a company comes in, complies with all the requirements, then the council has to be prepared to say, good to go.
But to George's point, I think that's a gamble.
You're one of 9.
I'm one of 9.
You guys need to decide.
You know, personally, what I would want to see, Chris, is, you know, I still don't have a sense of what our game plan is. You said you're going to sit down with Nick and a couple of the other department heads, you know, brainstorm and put an RFP together. You know, I would like to see a document that lays out what the process is going to be for us, so the council can understand what steps we're going to take to get